Eleanor's hand trembled as she reached for her purse. 32 minutes. That's how long she'd been sitting alone at Romano's cafe watching couples laugh over wine while the empty chair across from her screamed failure. She was done. Done with blind dates. Done with hope. Done with her daughter insisting she get back out there 3 years after Richard's death. But as she stood to leave, a small hand grabbed her wrist. "Please don't go, Miss Eleanor." The little girl's eyes were swimming with tears. "My daddy needs you to stay. He don't know it yet, but he's drowning." Before we continue, tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel and reading your comments. Now let's begin. Eleanor Mitchell's coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago. She stared at it anyway, watching her reflection warp in the dark liquid, because looking at the cafe around her hurt too much. Romano's was packed for a Thursday evening, every table filled with people who had someone. The young couple by the window feeding each other tiramisu. The elderly pair in the corner holding hands across breadsticks. Even the businessman at the bar was on a video call with someone who made him smile. Eleanor was 62 years old, sitting alone at a table for two, and she had never felt more invisible in her life. Her phone lit up. She grabbed it too fast. Just her daughter. Again. "Mom, give him a chance. Gerald said Robert is wonderful. You can't hide in that house forever." Eleanor's jaw tightened. She typed back with sharp fingers. "Been here 32 minutes. He's not coming. Going home." She didn't wait for a response. She reached for her purse, pulled out 2 20s for the untouched coffee and the dignity she was leaving behind, and started to stand. "Please don't go." The voice was small, young, desperate. Eleanor froze halfway out of her chair. A little girl stood beside the table. She couldn't have been more than 7, with cornrows decorated with colorful beads that clicked when she moved. Her brown eyes were too serious, too afraid, and they were looking at Eleanor like she was the last life raft on a sinking ship. "Please, Miss Eleanor," the child whispered. "My daddy needs you to stay." Eleanor's purse slipped from her fingers. "How do you know my name?" "Because you're supposed to meet my daddy, Mr. Robert. He's late, but he's coming. I promise he's coming." The words tumbled out in a rush. "He don't know I'm here. He don't know I heard him this morning crying in the bathroom. He don't know I know he's scared." The cafe noise, the clinking silverware, the espresso machine hissing the soft jazz, all of it faded into white noise. "Sweetheart," Eleanor said carefully, lowering back into her chair. "Where is your father?" "He's coming. He had to drop me at my Auntie Joy's house first, but then he had a—" The little girl's voice cracked. "He had a panic attack in the car. I saw it through the window. He was breathing real fast and holding his chest, and I got scared, Miss Eleanor. Real scared." Eleanor's heart clenched. "Is he okay? Did someone call 911? No. Auntie Joy helped him, gave him water and made him breathe slow. But then he said he couldn't do this, said he couldn't come meet you. Said it was too hard." Tears spilled down the child's cheeks. "So I ran. I ran 6 blocks to get here before you left." "You ran 6 blocks alone." "I had to." The little girl grabbed Eleanor's hand with both of hers, and her small fingers were cold and shaking. "My daddy's drowning, Miss Eleanor. Ever since Mama died, he's been drowning. And I don't know how to save him. But maybe you do." Eleanor couldn't breathe. This child, this brave, terrified child, had run through city streets to save her father's chance at happiness. "What's your name, honey?" "Imani. It means faith." She said it like a confession. Mama picked it. "Imani." Eleanor squeezed her hands gently. "Sit down. Tell me everything." Imani slid into the chair across from Eleanor, the chair that was supposed to be Robert's, and she started talking like a dam had burst. "Daddy's been sad for 3 years, ever since Mama got cancer. Pancreatic. That's what the doctors called it. She died real fast, Miss Eleanor. One day she was taking me to school, next day she was in the hospital, and then she was gone." Eleanor's own grief stirred raw and familiar. I lost my husband 3 years ago too. Heart attack. Imani's eyes widened. You understand then? You understand how Daddy looks at Mama's pictures and cries when he thinks I'm sleeping? How he still sets the table for 3 people sometimes, and then remembers and puts the extra plate away real quiet. How he tries so hard to be happy for me, but I can see he ain't. The words hit Eleanor like physical blows. Because yes, she understood all of it. Your Aunt Joy, Eleanor said. The one your father was with. Is she? She's not really my aunt. She's Daddy's friend from church. She keeps trying to get him to date again. She's the one who told Uncle Gerald about Daddy, and Uncle Gerald told your daughter. Imani's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I heard them talking last week. Auntie Joy said Daddy was wasting away, said he was only 43, and he was living like he was already dead. Eleanor felt something crack open in her chest. This morning, Imani continued, her words coming faster now. Daddy was getting ready. He ironed his shirt 3 times, Miss Eleanor, and he was practicing what to say in the mirror. Hi, I'm Robert. Nice to meet you. Then he'd shake his head and try again. Hello, Eleanor. I'm Robert Mitchell. He must have done it 20 times. Mitchell. Eleanor's breath caught. Your last name is Mitchell? Yes'm. My last name is Mitchell too. Was my married name. Imani's face lit up like sunrise. See, that's a sign. Mama used to say there ain't no such thing as coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. Eleanor wanted to believe that. God, she wanted to believe that. But then, Imani's voice dropped again. When we got in the car, Daddy started breathing funny, real fast, like he couldn't get enough air. He pulled over and just sat there, staring at nothing, breathing and breathing and breathing. Auntie Joy made him drink water, made him count backwards from 10. And when he finally could talk again, he said, I can't do this, Joy, I can't. What if I forget how to talk? What if I say something stupid? What if she thinks I'm broken? Tears were streaming down Eleanor's face now. She didn't bother wiping them away. Auntie Joy told him it was okay to be scared. But Daddy said no, I'm calling it off. I can't put someone through my mess. Eleanor deserves better than a man who falls apart in parking lots. Oh, Robert, Eleanor whispered to the empty air. So I ran, Imani said fiercely. I told Auntie Joy I had to use the bathroom, and I ran out the back door and I ran here because Daddy wrote this address on the calendar and circled it 17 times. I counted. Eleanor reached across the table and cupped Imani's face with both hands. You are the bravest little girl I have ever met. I'm scared, Miss Eleanor. Imani's voice broke. I'm scared my daddy's gonna be sad forever. I'm scared he's gonna stop trying. I'm scared. She couldn't finish. I know, baby, I know. The cafe door chimed. Eleanor looked up. A man stood in the doorway, tall, lean, with silver threading through his dark hair. He wore a navy shirt that had been ironed to within an inch of its life. His eyes swept the cafe, panicked, searching, and then they landed on Imani. Oh God, he breathed. Imani. He rushed over, moving like a man who'd just found his child in a burning building. When he reached the table, he dropped to his knees beside Imani's chair and grabbed her shoulders. Baby girl, you can't run off like that. You scared me half to death. Joy called me screaming that you were gone and His voice broke. I thought I'd lost you too. I'm sorry, Daddy. Imani threw her arms around his neck. I'm sorry, but you were gonna leave. You were gonna give up. Robert held his daughter like she was made of spun glass. His shoulders shook. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm such a mess, baby. I'm such a mess. You're not a mess, Daddy. You're just sad. And that's okay. Mama would say that's okay. Robert pulled back, wiping his face with the back of his hand. Then finally, he looked at Eleanor. Their eyes met. The world stopped. Eleanor saw everything in that moment. The exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes, the fear swimming in the dark brown irises, the hope he was trying desperately to bury, the grief that matched her own. "Eleanor," he said, and his voice was sandpaper rough. "I'm Robert. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Don't apologize." Eleanor's voice was steady clear. "Sit down." Robert blinked. "What?" "Sit down, Robert, please." He looked at Imani, who nodded encouragingly. Then, moving like he was in a dream, Robert stood and sank into the chair across from Eleanor. The chair that had been empty for 32 minutes. The chair that was always supposed to be his. "I was about to leave," Eleanor said quietly. "I was going to go home and tell my daughter that blind dates were a stupid idea, that I was too old for this, that I was done hoping." Robert's face crumbled. "I'm sorry. Let me finish." Eleanor leaned forward. "I was about to leave, and then your daughter ran 6 blocks to save you." Robert's head snapped toward Imani. 6 blocks, Imani, you..." "I had to, Daddy." Imani's voice was small but fierce. "I had to save you." Robert covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. Eleanor reached across the table and gently pulled his hands down. She held them. His fingers were trembling. "Robert," she said softly, "look at me." He did. His eyes were red-rimmed, wet, vulnerable. "I lost my husband 3 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. 1 minute he was mowing the lawn, the next minute he was gone." Eleanor's voice didn't shake. "I know what it's like to wake up every day and forget for just a second. To reach for someone who isn't there. To set the table for 2 and then remember. I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning on dry land." Robert's breath hitched. "I know what it's like to be terrified of trying again," Eleanor continued. "Because what if I forget his face? What if I laugh at someone else's joke, and Richard isn't there to laugh too? What if living again feels like betrayal?" "Yes." Robert's voice cracked. "Yes. All of that. But you know what else I know?" Eleanor squeezed his hands. "I know what it's like to have a child look at you with eyes that say, 'Please don't give up.' I know what it's like to realize that staying stuck isn't honoring the dead. It's just refusing to honor the living." Robert stared at her like she'd just handed him a life raft. "Your daughter," Eleanor said, glancing at Imani, who was watching them with barely contained hope, "ran 6 blocks because she loves you too much to watch you disappear. My daughter set up this date because she loves me too much to watch me fade away. Maybe we owe it to them to try." "I had a panic attack in the car," Robert said bluntly. "Joy had to talk me down. I almost didn't come at all. I'm not okay, Eleanor. I'm not put together. I'm broken pieces held together with duct tape and prayer." "Good," Eleanor said. "So am I." Robert laughed. It was watery and broken, but it was real. "This is the worst first date in history." "The worst," Eleanor agreed, smiling. "Completely terrible. I practiced what to say in the mirror 20 times this morning. Imani told me." Robert groaned. "Of course she did. She also told me you iron your shirts 3 times when you're nervous. You set the table for 3 people sometimes, and you cry in the bathroom where you think she can't hear." Robert looked at his daughter. "Imani." "I notice things, Daddy," Imani said unapologetically. "She gets that from her mother," Robert said softly. Deborah noticed everything too. Eleanor felt the name settle between them. Deborah. The woman Robert had loved. The woman he still loved. "Tell me about her," Eleanor said. Robert's eyes widened. "What?" "Tell me about Deborah. Tell me about the woman who raised this incredible daughter. Tell me about the woman you loved." Robert's throat worked. "You want to hear about my dead wife?" "Yes." Eleanor's voice was gentle but firm. "Because she's part of who you are. And if we're going to try this, whatever this is, I want to know all of you. Even the parts that hurt." Robert looked at Imani. She nodded. So Robert took a shaky breath and started talking. Deborah was a nurse, pediatric oncology. She spent her days with sick children and somehow never lost her smile. She sang while she cooked dinner. Terribly. Off-key. But she didn't care. She said joy was a choice and she chose it every single day. Eleanor listened, watching Robert's face transform as he talked. The grief was still there, but so was love. So much love. She was diagnosed on a Tuesday. Pancreatic cancer stage 4. By Friday, she was in hospice. We had 6 weeks. 6 weeks to say goodbye. 6 weeks to prepare Imani. 6 weeks to try to cram a lifetime into days. Robert's voice broke. It wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. I'm so sorry, Eleanor whispered. The last thing she said to me was, "Don't stop living, Bobby. Promise me. Don't stop living." Robert wiped his eyes. I promised. But I don't know how to keep that promise, because living without her feels impossible. Living without Richard feels impossible too, Eleanor admitted. But maybe that's because we're trying to do it alone. Robert met her eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we're supposed to drown together for a while, until we remember how to swim. Silence fell over the table. Then Imani spoke up, her voice small but determined. Mama would like you, Miss Eleanor. I know she would. How do you know? Eleanor asked gently. Because you made Daddy smile, just now, when he was talking about her. You didn't get jealous or sad, you just listened, and you made him smile while he was remembering. Imani's voice was odd. Nobody's done that before. Eleanor looked at Robert. He was staring at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Imani's right, Robert said quietly. You made me smile while I was talking about Deborah. That's never happened before. Because she loved you, Eleanor said simply. And love like that doesn't die. It transforms. It becomes part of the foundation that lets you build something new. Robert reached across the table and took Eleanor's hand. His grip was firm this time. No trembling. I'm a mess, he said. Fair warning. I have panic attacks. I cry in bathrooms. I set the table wrong. I forget to eat lunch sometimes because I get lost in my head. I work too much because it's easier than being home with memories. I'm broken, Eleanor. Really broken. Good, Eleanor said again. Because I'm a mess too. I talk to Richard's picture every morning over coffee. I still sleep on my side of the bed. I can't watch our favorite shows because they feel like betrayal. I push my daughter away because letting her in means admitting I'm lonely. I'm broken too, Robert. Really broken. So what do we do? Robert asked. We start small. Eleanor smiled. We finish this absolutely terrible first date. Then maybe we try a second one. And maybe on that one you show up on time. Robert laughed. Really laughed. Deal. Imani bounced in her seat. Can I come to the second date too? No, Robert and Eleanor said in unison. Then they looked at each other and laughed again. The waiter appeared young and confused. Are you folks ready to order? Eleanor looked at Robert. Robert looked at Eleanor. They looked at the menus they hadn't opened. They looked at Imani, who was grinning like she'd just won the lottery. Yes, Eleanor said. We're ready. And for the first time in 3 years, she meant it. They ordered pasta. Imani got chicken fingers with extra fries. They talked while they waited for food. Really talked. About grief and fear and the impossible task of moving forward when your heart is still anchored in the past. Robert told her about the panic attacks that came without warning. How sometimes he'd be fine, and then he'd smell Deborah's perfume on a stranger, and he'd be back in that hospice room watching her die. Eleanor told him about the nights she'd wake up reaching for Richard. How she'd lie there in the dark, hand stretched across cold sheets, wondering if she'd ever feel whole again. Imani listened to both of them with the solemnity of someone much older. When the food came, she said grace, a simple prayer, thanking God for second chances and new friends. Your mama teach you that? Eleanor asked softly. Yes'm. Mama said every meal is a gift. Every day is a gift. Every person who walks into your life is a gift. Imani looked between them. I think God sent you to us, Miss Eleanor. I prayed for it. Every night for 6 months I prayed for someone to help Daddy smile again. Eleanor's eyes burned. Well, I'm here now. Are you gonna leave? Imani asked suddenly, fear flashing across her face. When this date is over, are you gonna leave and never come back? Eleanor looked at Robert. He was watching her with that same fear in his eyes, trying to hide it and failing. No, sweetheart, Eleanor said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. I promise. Imani smiled. Then she did something that made both adults freeze. She reached across the table and put Eleanor's hand on top of Robert's, then covered both with her own small hands. There, she said with satisfaction. Now you're connected, like Mama used to say. 3 points make a triangle, and triangles are the strongest shape. Robert's voice was thick. Where'd you learn that, baby? Mama told me, before she died. She said someday Daddy might find someone new. And when he did, I should make sure we became a triangle, strong together. Eleanor couldn't stop the tears now. They streamed down her face as she looked at this motherless child who was trying so hard to save her father. Your mama was a very wise woman, Eleanor managed. She was the wisest. Imani agreed. Then more quietly, you think she can see us right now, from heaven? Yes, Eleanor and Robert said together. Good. Imani nodded. Then she knows I kept my promise. I took care of Daddy like she asked. And I found him someone good. They ate their dinner. They talked about safer things. Robert's work as an electrician, Eleanor's retirement from teaching Imani's school, and her love of science. But underneath every word was the understanding that something had shifted. Something had begun. When the check came, Robert reached for it. Eleanor put her hand over his. We split it, she said. This is a partnership from the start. Robert smiled. Okay. Partnership. Outside Romano's, the night air was cool and smelled like rain. Imani stood between them, holding both their hands. Where are you parked? Robert asked Eleanor. 2 blocks that way. She pointed. Where are you? 4 blocks the other way. He hesitated. Can I walk you to your car? I'd like that. They walked slowly through the city streets. Imani chattered about school, about her science project on volcanoes, about her best friend Maya, who had a pet hamster. Normal child things, things that felt like life continuing. When they reached Eleanor's car, Robert helped Imani into his arms so she could give Eleanor a hug. Thank you for staying, Imani whispered in Eleanor's ear. Thank you for saving my daddy. Thank you for saving me, Eleanor whispered back. When Imani pulled away, Robert and Eleanor stood there, awkward and uncertain. So, Robert said. Second date. Saturday, Eleanor suggested. Morning, coffee and breakfast, somewhere with pancakes. Imani loves pancakes. Then Imani's invited. Eleanor smiled. But maybe after that we try one with just the 2 of us. Robert nodded. I'd like that. They stood there a moment longer. Then Eleanor did something that surprised even herself. She reached up and kissed Robert's cheek, just a soft brush of lips against skin. Good night, Robert, she said. Good night, Eleanor. She drove home with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face. When she walked through her front door, her daughter called from the living room. Mom, how did it go? Eleanor thought about panic attacks in parking lots, about a 7-year-old running 6 blocks, about a man who loved his dead wife enough to keep living for his daughter, about 2 broken people agreeing to drown together until they learned to swim. It was perfect, Eleanor said. Absolutely perfect. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of autumn sunshine that made everything feel possible. Eleanor stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes, pulling out blouses and putting them back, feeling ridiculous. She was 62 years old, for God's sake. Too old to be this nervous about pancakes. Her phone buzzed on the dresser. "Mom, what are you wearing?" Her daughter Linda's voice was bright with barely contained excitement. "I don't know yet. That's the problem." "The blue sweater. The one Dad always said made your eyes look like the ocean." Eleanor's hand paused on the hanger. "Linda." "Mom. He'd want you to wear it. You know he would." Eleanor pulled out the blue sweater. Richard had bought it for her 10th anniversary. She hadn't worn it since he died. "Okay," she whispered. "The blue sweater. Text me after. I want to know everything." Eleanor arrived at the Griddle House at exactly 9 o'clock. Robert and Imani were already there, sitting in a booth by the window. Robert stood when he saw her, and Eleanor noticed his hands were shaking slightly as he smoothed down his shirt. "You came," he said, and there was relief in his voice, like he'd half expected her to change her mind. "I promised, didn't I?" Imani bounced in her seat. "Miss Eleanor, I saved you the best spot. Right next to me." Eleanor slid into the booth next to Imani, and Robert sat across from them. For a moment, nobody spoke. They just looked at each other, taking in the reality that this was happening, that they were trying. "I didn't sleep much last night," Robert admitted suddenly. "Kept thinking I dreamed the whole thing, that I'd show up here and you wouldn't come." "I almost didn't," Eleanor said honestly. "I got in my car 3 times, sat there, turned around and went back inside. My daughter finally called and threatened to drive over and drag me here herself." Robert laughed, and the sound eased something tight in Eleanor's chest. "Joy did the same thing. Called me at 7 this morning to make sure I was awake, then called again at 8 to make sure I was getting dressed, then called at 8:30 to make sure you didn't chicken out," Eleanor finished. "Exactly." Imani looked between them with satisfaction. "Grown-ups are weird. If you like each other, just say you like each other." "Out of the mouths of babes," Eleanor murmured. The waitress came over, an older woman with kind eyes and a coffee pot. "What can I get you folks?" "Chocolate chip pancakes," Imani announced. "With extra chocolate chips, and whipped cream, and bacon. Lots of bacon." "Someone's hungry," the waitress said, smiling. "I'm celebrating," Imani said seriously. "My daddy has a friend now." The waitress looked at Eleanor, then at Robert, and her expression softened. "Well, that's real nice, honey. Real nice." She took their orders and disappeared. Robert leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "I want to be honest with you, Eleanor. About everything. No pretending I'm okay when I'm not." "I want that too." "I had another panic attack yesterday, after I got home, after I put Imani to bed. I was sitting on the couch and suddenly I couldn't breathe. Kept thinking about Deborah, about how she'd feel knowing I was going out with someone else." Eleanor reached across the table and took his hand. "What did you decide?" "That she'd be happy. Scared for me, maybe. But happy." His voice cracked. "She always wanted me to be happy." "Richard wanted that for me too," Eleanor said. "The last thing he said before the ambulance came was, 'Don't stop dancing, Ellie.' We used to dance in the kitchen while cooking dinner. Stupid, silly dancing to old Motown records. And after he died, I couldn't even turn on the radio. Couldn't bear it." "Did you ever dance again?" Robert asked quietly. "No, not once." Eleanor's throat tightened. "I boxed up all the records. Gave them to Goodwill. Linda was furious with me. Said I was erasing him. But I wasn't. I was just trying to survive." Imani squeezed Eleanor's other hand. "Maybe you and Daddy could dance together sometime. Start new." Robert's eyes met Eleanor's across the table, and something electric passed between them. "Maybe we could." The food arrived. They ate and talked. Really talked about everything. Robert told her about his work, how he'd taken over his father's electrical business 15 years ago, how Deborah used to do the books because he was terrible with numbers, how he still kept her handwriting in the margins of old invoices because letting go of those pages felt like letting go of her. Eleanor told him about teaching second grade for 35 years, about the kids who still sent her Christmas cards, about how Richard used to help her grade papers at the kitchen table, making silly comments on the spelling tests that she'd have to erase before giving them back. "I miss the routine of it," Eleanor admitted. "Having someone to share the small things with. Like Richard always knew when I'd had a hard day just by the way I set my purse down. He'd already have tea brewing before I even took off my coat." "Deborah was like that too," Robert said. "She'd know I'd had a rough job just by the way I closed the truck door. She'd meet me at the door with a beer and a kiss, and she'd say, 'Tell me about it.' And I would. All of it. Every frustrating moment." "Who do you tell now?" Eleanor asked. Robert looked at Imani. "I try not to burden her. She's just a kid." "But I know anyway, Daddy," Imani said around a mouthful of pancake. "I can tell when you're sad. You get real quiet and you forget to turn off lights when you leave rooms." Robert's face crumbled. "Baby, I'm sorry. I never wanted you to worry about me." "I'm your daughter. Worrying about you is my job." Imani said it so matter-of-factly that both adults laughed even as they teared up. After breakfast, they walked to a nearby park. Imani ran ahead to the playground, and Robert and Eleanor sat on a bench watching her climb the jungle gym with fearless determination. "She's so much like Deborah," Robert said softly. "That fearlessness, that certainty that the world will catch her if she falls." "You gave her that," Eleanor said. "That security, that love. You did that, Robert." "I'm terrified I'm going to mess it up. That loving someone else is going to somehow hurt her. That she'll think I'm replacing her mother." Eleanor watched Imani wave at them from the top of the slide. "That child ran 6 blocks to save your chance at happiness. I don't think you need to worry about her approval." Robert laughed, but it was shaky. When did kids get so wise? When they had to be. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Robert spoke again, his voice careful. "I need to tell you something. About why this is so hard for me." "Okay." "When Deborah got sick, it happened so fast. One day she was fine, the next day she was dying, and I didn't—" His voice broke. "I didn't tell her I loved her enough. That last morning before she collapsed, we had a stupid argument about something I can't even remember what, and I left for work mad. Didn't kiss her goodbye, didn't say I love you. And then I got the call from the school that she'd collapsed during pickup." Eleanor's heart shattered. "Oh, Robert." "By the time I got to the hospital, she was barely conscious. And I just kept saying, 'I'm sorry, I love you, I'm sorry,' over and over. And she couldn't even respond because the cancer was already in her brain. She just looked at me with these eyes that said she knew. But I never got to fix it, never got to take back that morning." Tears streamed down Eleanor's face. She knew, Robert. Of course she knew. But what if she didn't? What if the last thing she remembered was me walking out mad over something stupid? Robert covered his face with his hands. "That's what I think about every night. That's what keeps me up. The idea that I failed her when it mattered most." Eleanor turned to face him fully. "Robert, look at me." He lowered his hands. His eyes were red and devastated. "She knew," Eleanor said firmly. "You don't build a life with someone you don't create a child together. You don't love someone for years and not know that they love you. One bad morning doesn't erase all the good ones. It doesn't erase all the times you did say I love you, all the times you showed it. How can you be sure? Because Richard and I fought the morning he died too." Eleanor's voice shook. "About the lawn. He wanted to mow it, and I said it could wait, it was too hot. And he said I always thought I knew better. And I said maybe I did. And then he went out anyway and—" She couldn't finish. Robert grabbed her hand. "Eleanor. And for 4 years I've carried that guilt. That my last words to him were argumentative and mean. That I didn't stop him. That I let him go out there in the heat and—" She sobbed. "And I've hated myself for it, every single day." Robert pulled her into his arms right there on the park bench. Eleanor buried her face in his shoulder and cried. Really cried. The kind of crying she'd been holding back for 4 years. "It wasn't your fault," Robert whispered into her hair. "It wasn't your fault." "It wasn't yours either," Eleanor said against his chest. "It wasn't yours either." They held each other while Imani played two broken people sharing the weight of guilt and grief and the desperate hope that maybe they could forgive themselves. When Eleanor finally pulled back, Robert cupped her face with both hands. "We're a mess, aren't we?" "The worst," Eleanor agreed, laughing through tears. "Completely hopeless. Want to be hopeless together?" "Yes." Imani ran over panting and flushed. "Daddy, can Miss Eleanor come see our house? Please, I want to show her my room and my science project and Mama's garden and—" "Imani, that's a lot for a second date," Robert started. "I'd love to," Eleanor interrupted. Robert looked at her. "You sure?" "Yes. I want to see where you live. Where Deborah lived. I want to know that part of your story." The drive to Robert's house took 15 minutes. Eleanor followed in her car, and the whole way her heart hammered against her ribs. This felt significant, important, like crossing a threshold she couldn't uncross. Robert's house was a small ranch-style home in a quiet neighborhood. The yard was neat, but lived in, with a basketball hoop in the driveway, and flower beds that needed weeding. "I tried to keep up Deborah's garden," Robert said as they walked to the front door. "But I don't have her touch. Everything's dying, and I don't know how to save it." Eleanor looked at the struggling roses, the overgrown daylilies. "Maybe I could help. I used to garden with Richard, before." Yeah. Inside the house smelled like vanilla and cinnamon. Photos covered every surface. Eleanor saw them immediately. Deborah's smile beaming from frame after frame. A beautiful woman with joy radiating from her face. "That's Mama," Imani said, pointing to a large portrait over the fireplace. "Daddy says I got her smile." "You did," Eleanor said softly. "You absolutely did." Robert stood back, watching Eleanor look at photos of his dead wife, watching her take in every detail of the life he'd had before. And Eleanor understood what he wasn't saying. This was a test. If she couldn't handle Deborah's presence here, if she couldn't accept that Deborah would always be part of this house, part of this family, then they couldn't move forward. Eleanor walked to the mantel and picked up a photo of Robert and Deborah on their wedding day. They looked impossibly young, impossibly happy. "She was beautiful," Eleanor said. "She was," Robert agreed, coming to stand beside her. "You loved her very much." "I did. I do." He corrected himself. "I don't know what tense to use. Present, past, both." "Both," Eleanor said firmly. "You use both, because love doesn't die just because the person does. And I'm not here to replace her, Robert. I couldn't even if I tried. I'm here to build something new alongside what you had, not instead of it." Robert's breath hitched. "You mean that?" "I mean that. Richard is still part of me, still in my heart, and that's okay. You can hold love for more than one person. The heart's bigger than we think." Imani tugged on Eleanor's hand. "Come see my room. Come see." Eleanor let herself be dragged down the hallway. Imani's room was an explosion of purple and science posters and stuffed animals. A periodic table hung over her bed. Books about space and volcanoes and the ocean covered her desk. "Mama got me all these books," Imani said proudly, "before she got too sick. She said I could be anything I wanted if I just kept learning." "Your mama was right," Eleanor said, kneeling down to Imani's level. "You can be anything." "Miss Eleanor." Imani's voice got small. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything, sweetheart. Are you going to be my new mama?" Eleanor's heart stopped. She looked up at Robert, who stood frozen in the doorway, clearly not expecting that question. "Imani, honey," Robert started. It's okay, Eleanor said. She turned back to Imani. Sweetheart, nobody can replace your mama. Nobody should even try. Your mama loved you so much. She'll always be your mama. Imani's eyes filled with tears. Then what will you be? I'll be Eleanor, your friend, your daddy's friend. Someone who cares about you very much. Is that okay? Imani thought about it seriously. Then she nodded. That's okay. Can friends help with science projects? Friends absolutely help with science projects. Good. Because mine's due Tuesday, and Daddy doesn't understand volcanoes. Robert laughed from the doorway. I understand volcanoes. I just don't understand how to build a model of one that doesn't explode all over the kitchen table. That's the best part, Imani said, scandalized. They spent the afternoon working on the volcano. Eleanor helped Imani mix the paper mache while Robert painted the base. They laughed when the mixture got too wet and dripped everywhere. Laughed when Robert got paint in his hair. Laughed when Imani insisted they needed to make the lava more realistic by adding glitter. Lava doesn't have glitter, Robert protested. This lava does, Imani said firmly. It's magic lava. Eleanor watched them bicker back and forth, father and daughter, and something in her chest expanded. This was what she'd been missing. Not just romance, not just companionship, but family. The noise and mess and love of family. When the volcano was finished and drying on newspaper, Imani went to wash her hands. Robert and Eleanor stood in the kitchen, covered in paper mache and paint, grinning at each other like teenagers. I can't believe we just spent 3 hours building a volcano, Robert said. I can't believe how much fun it was, Eleanor replied. Robert stepped closer. Eleanor, can I tell you something? Of course. I haven't laughed this much in 3 years. Not once. And today, I've laughed so much my face hurts. His voice got thick. You did that. You and your terrible volcano building skills. Hey, my skills are excellent. It's your paint technique that needs work. Robert laughed again, and then suddenly, he wasn't laughing. He was looking at Eleanor with an intensity that made her breath catch. Can I kiss you? Eleanor's heart raced. Yes. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind. But Eleanor didn't want to change her mind. She wanted this. Wanted to remember what it felt like to be wanted. Their lips met softly. Tentatively. It wasn't the passionate kiss of young lovers. It was gentler than that. More meaningful. The kiss of two people who'd survived loss and were brave enough to try again. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying. That wasn't weird, was it? Robert asked. Kissing while crying. It was perfect, Eleanor whispered. It was exactly right. I'm scared, Robert admitted. I'm so scared of messing this up, of hurting you, of hurting Imani, of... Eleanor put her finger on his lips. We're both scared. That's okay. Scared means it matters. Yeah, Robert breathed. It does matter. Imani came back into the kitchen and stopped dead looking at them with wide eyes. Did you kiss? Maybe, Robert said. Good, Imani said with satisfaction. Mama said when you find someone special, you're supposed to kiss them. So they know. Eleanor knelt down and opened her arms. Imani ran into them, and Eleanor held her tight. Thank you for sharing your daddy with me. Thank you for making him smile again, Imani whispered back. Eleanor left as the sun was setting. Robert walked her to her car while Imani waved from the porch. So, Robert said. Third date. Tomorrow, Eleanor suggested. Just us this time. Dinner. Just us, Robert agreed. I'll pick you up at 7. It's a date. Robert kissed her again, softer this time, sweeter. Drive safe. I will. Eleanor drove home with the taste of him still on her lips and hope blazing in her chest. When she walked through her door, Linda called immediately. Well, we built a volcano, Eleanor said. You what? We built a volcano, with paper mache and paint and glitter. And Linda, I haven't had that much fun in years. Actual fun. The kind that makes you forget to be sad. Mom. Linda's voice cracked. Are you crying? Yes, but they're good tears. Eleanor looked at Richard's photo on the mantel. They're really good tears. Tell me everything. So Eleanor did. She told her daughter about pancakes and park benches and sharing guilt and building science projects. About a little girl with her mother's smile and a man brave enough to try again. About kisses that tasted like salt and hope. He sounds wonderful, Mom. He is. He's wonderful and broken and scared and trying, just like me. Dad would love him, Linda said softly. Eleanor looked at Richard's photo again. Yeah, I think he would. That night, Eleanor did something she hadn't done in 4 years. She pulled out the box of Motown records from the back of the hall closet. She put on Ain't No Mountain High Enough, the song Imani said Robert had been singing the morning of their date. And Eleanor danced. She danced alone in her kitchen with tears streaming down her face. She danced for Richard, for Deborah, for Robert and Imani and herself. For everyone who'd loved and lost and was trying to find the courage to love again. She danced until the song ended. Then she played it again, and when Linda called back an hour later to check on her, Eleanor was still dancing, still crying, still healing. Mom, are you okay? Yeah, baby, Eleanor said, breathless and alive. I think I finally am. Sunday evening arrived too slowly for Eleanor's liking. She'd spent the entire day cleaning her house, changing outfits 4 times, and trying to calm the butterflies that had taken up permanent residence in her stomach. A real date. Just the 2 of them. No 7-year-old mediator. No science projects. Just Eleanor and Robert trying to figure out if this fragile thing between them could become something real. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 o'clock. Eleanor opened it to find Robert standing on her porch holding a single yellow rose. His hands were shaking. Yellow means friendship, he said quickly. I looked it up. I didn't want to presume with red, but I wanted to bring you something, so I thought yellow was safe. But now I'm thinking maybe I should have just brought wine or... Eleanor took the rose and kissed his cheek. It's perfect. Come in. I just need to grab my purse. Robert stepped inside and immediately froze. His eyes landed on the photo of Richard that sat on the entryway table. A handsome man with laugh lines and kind eyes frozen forever at 58. That's Richard, Eleanor said softly. He looks like a good man. He was the best man I knew, until I met you. Robert turned to her vulnerability written all over his face. I keep waiting for this to feel wrong. Like I'm betraying Deborah. But it doesn't. Is that terrible? No. It means you're ready. Eleanor touched his face. She'd want this for you, Robert. Just like Richard would want it for me. How do you know? Because people who love us don't want us to stop living when they die. They want us to live twice as hard, for them and for us. Robert pulled her close and held her for a long moment. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do, and I deserve you too. We both deserve a second chance. They drove to a small Italian restaurant across town, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. Robert held the door for her, pulled out her chair, and Eleanor watched him try so hard to get everything right. Relax, she said when he nearly knocked over his water glass. It's just me. That's the problem. You matter, so I'm terrified of messing this up. Their waiter came by, an elderly Italian man who looked like he'd been working there since the restaurant opened. What can I get for you lovebirds? Oh, we're not... Robert started. We'll start with wine. Eleanor interrupted. Red, something Italian. The waiter winked and disappeared. Lovebirds, Robert said, his ears turning red. Let him think what he wants. We know what we are. And what are we? Eleanor considered this. We're 2 people who've been through hell and somehow found each other on the other side. We're scared and hopeful and taking it one day at a time. That's what we are. I like that answer. The wine came. They ordered pasta and salad and bread. And then they talked. Really talked. About things they'd been avoiding. I need to tell you about the panic attacks, Robert said. They happen randomly. Sometimes I'll be fine for weeks. Then something will trigger me and I can't breathe. Last month I had one at the grocery store because they were playing the song Deborah and I danced to at our wedding. What do you do when they happen? I count backwards from 100 by sevens. Deborah's doctor taught me that trick. It forces your brain to focus on something besides the panic. 93, 86, 79, like that. Does it work? Sometimes. Other times I just have to ride it out. Wait for it to pass. He looked down at his wine. I'm on medication. Anti-anxiety. Have been for 2 years. Is that a problem? Why would that be a problem? Because some people think it means I'm weak, that I should just get over it. Eleanor reached across the table and took both his hands. Robert Mitchell, listen to me. Taking medication for your mental health doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart. It makes you someone who's doing what they need to do to survive. Don't ever apologize for that. Robert's eyes filled. Thank you. I see a therapist, Eleanor said. Every other Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Have for 3 years. After Richard died, I didn't get out of bed for 2 weeks. Linda finally dragged me to her own therapist and made me talk. Best thing she ever forced me to do. What do you talk about? Everything. Grief. Guilt. How angry I am that Richard left me. How angry I am at myself for being angry at him. How terrified I am of loving someone again because what if they die too? What if everyone I love just leaves? Her voice cracked. What if I'm cursed? You're not cursed, Robert said firmly. How do you know? Because you're here. Because you stayed at that cafe when you could have left. Because you kissed me in my kitchen covered in papier-mâché. Because you're brave enough to try again, even though you're scared. That's not cursed, Eleanor. That's miraculous. Eleanor cried right there in the restaurant. Just let the tears fall, while other diners pretended not to notice. Robert moved his chair around to her side of the table and held her. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm a mess. We're both messes. That's the deal, remember? Eleanor laughed through her tears. Yeah, that's the deal. Their food arrived and they ate slowly, sharing bites from each other's plates like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. Robert told her about the first time he'd tried to cook for Imani after Deborah died. I burned everything. The chicken was black. The rice was somehow both mushy and hard. Imani ate it anyway and told me it was delicious. She was 4 years old and she was trying to protect my feelings. What did you do? I cried. Right there at the dinner table. Just sobbed. And Imani climbed into my lap and patted my head and said, It's okay, Daddy. We can have cereal instead. So we did. We had cereal for dinner and watched cartoons, and I held her and thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to raise this child alone? But you did it, Eleanor said softly. I'm still figuring it out. Every day, I'm figuring it out. He paused. What about you? How did Linda handle losing her dad? She was angry, so angry. She screamed at me that it was my fault for letting him go outside, screamed that I killed him, and I just stood there and took it because part of me believed her. Eleanor's hands shook around her fork. We didn't speak for 3 months. 3 months, Robert. My only child, and we didn't speak because we were both drowning in grief, and we didn't know how to reach for each other. What changed? She showed up at my house one night at 2 a.m. She'd been at a bar, had too much to drink, and she just appeared on my doorstep crying. Said, I miss him, Mom. I miss him so much, and I don't know how to live without him. And we held each other and cried, and finally we started healing. You're lucky you have her. I know. She's my whole world. Her and now... Eleanor stopped. And now what? And now maybe you and Imani too. if you'll let me in." Robert cupped her face. "Eleanor, you're already in. You've been in since that first night when you didn't run away from my broken family. You're in, sweetheart. All the way in." They kissed right there in the restaurant with pasta cooling on their plates and other diners smiling at them. When they pulled apart, Robert was grinning. "I haven't kissed someone in public in 3 years. How does it feel?" "Terrifying. Amazing. Like I'm 18 again." "You're not 18. Thank God. I was an idiot at 18. They finished dinner and walked to a nearby park. The evening air was cool and smelled like autumn leaves. They walked slowly, hands intertwined, not talking, just being together. Robert broke the silence first. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay? Are you doing this because you're lonely? Because if you're just looking for someone to fill the empty space Richard left, I need to know now. Before Imani gets more attached. Before I get more attached." Eleanor stopped walking and turned to face him fully. "Robert, I'm not going to lie and say I'm not lonely. I am. I've been lonely for 4 years, but that's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" "Because when I'm with you, I don't just feel less lonely. I feel alive again. I feel like maybe there's still good things waiting for me. Like maybe joy isn't just a memory, but something I can have again." She squeezed his hands. "I'm here because of you, Robert. Not because of what you can fix for me, but because of who you are. I'm nobody special." "You're wrong. You're a man who learned to braid hair from YouTube, who builds volcanoes with his daughter, who loved his wife so much he's terrified of betraying her memory, who has panic attacks and takes medication and keeps showing up anyway. That's special, Robert. That's everything." Robert pulled her close and buried his face in her hair. "I'm falling in love with you. Is that crazy? It's been a week." "It's been a week and a lifetime," Eleanor whispered. "And I'm falling too." They stood there in the park holding each other while the world moved around them. Dog walkers passed. Joggers ran by. Life continued. And for the first time in years, both of them felt like they were part of it again. When Robert drove Eleanor home, they sat in his truck in her driveway talking for another hour. About everything and nothing. About Imani's school. About Eleanor's garden that she'd let die. About whether they believed in heaven and if their spouses were watching them now. "I think they are," Robert said. "And I think they're happy for us." "You really believe that?" "I have to, because otherwise the guilt would kill me." Eleanor understood that completely. "I talk to Richard sometimes, out loud. Tell him about my day, about you, about how scared I am but how happy I am too. Is that weird?" "No, I do the same thing with Deborah. Tell her about Imani's report cards, about the jobs I'm working on, about you." He smiled. "I told her you're nothing like her, that you're your own person, that I'm not trying to replace her." "What do you think she'd say?" "She'd say, good. Stop being scared and live, Bobby. Just live." His voice broke on her name. "Then let's live," Eleanor said. "Let's be scared and live anyway." Robert walked her to her door. They kissed goodnight slowly, savoring it, neither wanting to let go. When Eleanor finally went inside, she leaned against the closed door and smiled. Her phone rang. "Linda. How was it?" "Perfect. Scary and perfect." "Mom, are you falling for him?" Eleanor thought about that, about Robert's shaking hands and gentle heart, about the way he loved his daughter fiercely, about how he made her feel alive and terrified and hopeful all at once. "Yeah, baby, I think I am." "Good. You deserve this, Mom. You deserve to be happy again." After they hung up, Eleanor walked to Richard's photo. She picked it up and held it close. "I'm trying, Richard. I'm really trying. And I think you'd like him. I think you'd be happy I found him." She kissed the photo. "I'll always love you, but I'm going to love him too. Is that okay?" The house was quiet, but Eleanor felt peace settle over her like a blanket. "Thank you." she whispered to the universe, to Richard, to whatever force had brought Robert and Imani into her life. 3 weeks passed like a dream. Eleanor and Robert fell into a rhythm. Dinners twice a week, phone calls every night after Imani went to bed. Saturday mornings at the Griddle House had become their tradition, with Imani acting as the world's most enthusiastic third wheel. Eleanor met Robert's friends from church. Joy hugged her so hard she couldn't breathe and whispered, "Thank you for saving him," in her ear. Robert met Linda over coffee, and they bonded over their shared terror about Eleanor and Robert moving too fast. "Is this too fast?" Robert asked Eleanor after that meeting. "Probably. Does it feel too fast to you?" "No, it feels exactly right." "Then that's all that matters." But then November arrived, and with it came the hard anniversaries. Deborah had died on November 15th. Richard had died on November 22nd. A week apart. A week of grief that threatened to pull them both under. Eleanor called Robert on November 14th. "Tomorrow's going to be hard for you." "I know, I'm already not sleeping." "What do you usually do?" "Stay in bed. Let Imani stay home from school. Watch Deborah's favorite movies. Cry a lot." "Can I be there with you and Imani?" Robert was quiet for a long moment. "You want to spend Deborah's death anniversary with us?" "I want to be there for you, both of you. I want to hold you while you cry. I want to help you remember her. I want to show Imani that it's okay to be sad." "Eleanor." His voice cracked completely. "Let me in, Robert. Let me in all the way." "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." Eleanor arrived at Robert's house at 8 in the morning on November 15th. She brought flowers for Deborah's grave and breakfast for a family in mourning. Robert answered the door in pajamas with red-rimmed eyes. "I haven't been to sleep yet," he admitted. "That's okay. Where's Imani?" "Still in bed. She'll be up soon." Eleanor set the food down and pulled Robert into her arms. He collapsed against her and sobbed, great heaving sobs that shook his whole body. Eleanor held him and let him break apart. "I miss her," he choked out. "God, Eleanor, I miss her so much." "I know, baby, I know. It's been 3 years and it still hurts like it happened yesterday." "It always will. The hurt doesn't go away. You just learn to carry it better." They stood in the entryway holding each other while the sun rose higher. When Robert finally pulled back, his face was blotchy and his eyes were swollen, but something in him looked lighter. "Thank you for coming." "Where else would I be?" Imani came out of her room holding a photo album. She climbed into Eleanor's lap without asking permission and opened it. "This is Mama," she said, pointing to a picture of Deborah holding baby Imani. "She was so pretty." "She was beautiful," Eleanor agreed. "You look just like her." They spent the morning looking through photos. Imani told stories about her mother, about how Deborah sang off-key, about how she made the best chocolate chip cookies, about how she always knew when Imani was sad, even before Imani knew it herself. Robert cried through most of it, and Eleanor held his hand and cried too, not because she knew Deborah, but because she understood the shape of this loss, the weight of it. "Miss Eleanor," Imani asked suddenly. "Yes, sweetheart. Are you sad Mr. Richard is dead?" Eleanor's breath caught. Robert's head snapped up. They'd never talked about Richard with Imani, never mentioned him. "Yes, honey, I'm very sad." "Do you miss him like Daddy misses Mama?" "Every single day." Imani thought about that seriously. "When's your sad day? Your anniversary day?" "Next week, November 22nd. "That soon?" Imani said, with a child's simple understanding of time. "It is." "Can we come be with you, like you're being with us?" Imani looked up at her father. "Daddy, can we? So Miss Eleanor's not alone." Robert's eyes met Eleanor's across Imani's head. "If Eleanor wants us there, we'll be there." Eleanor couldn't speak around the lump in her throat. She just nodded. They drove to the cemetery that afternoon. Eleanor stayed in the truck while Robert and Imani walked to Deborah's grave. She watched them kneel together, watched Robert trace his fingers over the headstone, watched Imani leave her flowers. When they came back, Robert's face was peaceful for the first time all day. "Thank you for letting us do that alone," he said. "Some moments are just for family." "You are family, Eleanor. You're becoming family." That night, after they put Imani to bed, Robert and Eleanor sat on his back porch with blankets wrapped around them. "Next week's going to be my hard day," Eleanor said. "I know. We'll be there. I promise." "Robert, what are we doing? What is this becoming?" "I don't know, but I know I don't want to stop. I know I wake up every morning thinking about you. I know Imani asks about you constantly. I know when I'm having a panic attack, I think about your voice telling me to breathe and it helps." He turned to her. "I know I'm falling in love with you more every day, and it's terrifying and wonderful, and I don't want it to stop." "I don't want it to stop either," Eleanor whispered. "But I'm scared, Robert. I'm so scared." "Of what?" "Of losing you too. Of letting myself love you and then having you ripped away like Richard was. Of opening my heart and having it destroyed again. I'm scared of that too. Every single day." Robert pulled her close. "But I'd rather have whatever time we get than spend the rest of my life wondering what if." Eleanor kissed him. Deep and desperate and full of all the fear and hope she couldn't put into words. "Stay tonight," Robert said against her lips. "Nothing has to happen. Just stay. Sleep next to me. Let me hold you." Eleanor pulled back. "Robert, I haven't slept next to someone in 3 years, and I'm so tired, Eleanor. I'm so tired of being alone in that bed. Please." Eleanor thought about her own empty bed. About 3 years of sleeping diagonally because she couldn't bear to stay on her side. About waking up reaching for someone who wasn't there. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay." They lay in Robert's bed fully clothed, holding each other in the dark. Eleanor's head rested on Robert's chest, and she listened to his heartbeat. Steady, alive, real. "This is nice," Robert whispered. "It really is." Eleanor. "Yeah. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for choosing me and Imani. Thank you for being brave enough to try." Eleanor tilted her head up and kissed his jaw. "Thank you for letting me in. For trusting me with your grief. For showing me that it's okay to live again." They fell asleep like that, two broken people holding each other together, choosing hope over fear, choosing love over loss, choosing to believe that maybe, just maybe, they deserved a second chance at happiness. Eleanor woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains and the sound of a child's laughter echoing from somewhere in the house. For one disoriented moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then she felt the warmth beside her, saw Robert's sleeping face inches from hers, and remembered. She'd stayed. She'd slept in his arms all night, and the world hadn't ended. Robert's eyes opened slowly. When he saw her, his whole face softened into a smile that made Eleanor's heart skip. "Hi," he whispered. "Hi yourself. You stayed. I stayed. How do you feel?" Eleanor considered this honestly. Terrified, happy, guilty, hopeful, all of it at once. "Yeah," Robert said, understanding completely. "Me too." The bedroom door burst open, and Imani stood there in her pajamas, her eyes wide. "Miss Eleanor, you're still here. Does this mean you're living with us now?" "Imani." Robert started sitting up quickly. "Miss Eleanor just stayed over because yesterday was a hard day and we didn't want to be alone," Eleanor finished gently. She held out her arm, and Imani climbed onto the bed between them. "But I'm not living here, sweetheart. I have my own house." "But you could live here," Imani said hopefully. "We have extra space. Daddy could clean out the office and—" "Whoa, whoa," Robert said, laughing nervously. "Let's slow down there, baby girl." "But I like having Miss Eleanor here. The house feels different when she's here. It feels less sad." Eleanor's throat tightened. "Your house isn't sad, Imani. It's full of love. Love for your mama, love for you, love for all the good memories you've made here. But it could have new love too, right? Mama's love and Miss Eleanor's love both. Robert looked at Eleanor helplessly. Eleanor touched Imani's face. Right. Both kinds of love. Because love doesn't run out. There's always room for more. So you'll come back? To stay over again? Let's take it one day at a time, okay? Imani seemed satisfied with this answer. She bounced off the bed. I'm making breakfast. Daddy taught me how to make scrambled eggs. They're a little runny, but edible. After she left, Robert buried his face in his hands. I'm sorry, I should have locked the door. I didn't think about her just walking in and… Robert. Eleanor pulled his hands away from his face. It's okay. She's 7. She's going to have questions. We just have to answer them honestly. But what if we're moving too fast? What if we're confusing her? Are we confusing her? Or are we showing her what it looks like to heal? To try again? Robert pulled Eleanor close. When did you get so wise? About the same time you learned to make volcanoes with extra glitter. They ate runny scrambled eggs that Imani served with enormous pride. Eleanor praised every bite, even though they were undersalted and definitely needed another minute in the pan. Robert caught her eye and grinned, and Eleanor knew he was thinking the same thing. This was what family looked like. Imperfect, messy, real. After breakfast, Eleanor drove home to change clothes and prepare for what was coming. November 22nd. Richard's death day. 4 years since her world had shattered. Linda called at 9 in the morning. Mom, I'm coming over. You don't have to. Yes, I do. It's Dad's day. We spend it together. That's the rule. Eleanor's eyes filled. Okay, baby. Come over. Linda arrived with coffee and pastries from the bakery Richard had loved. They sat at Eleanor's kitchen table and looked through photo albums, just like Eleanor had done with Robert and Imani. He would have loved Robert, Linda said suddenly. Eleanor looked up surprised. You think so? Dad loved people who showed up, people who tried hard, people who loved their kids fiercely. That's Robert. Dad would have loved him. Linda paused. Are you in love with him, Mom? I think so. Is that terrible? 4 years and I'm already in love with someone else? Mom, stop. Dad's been gone 4 years. 4 years of you barely living. 4 years of you going through the motions. If Robert makes you actually live again, then Dad would be throwing a party in heaven right now. Eleanor cried into her coffee. I miss your father so much. I know, Mom. I miss him too. Every single day. Linda reached across the table. But he's not coming back. And you deserve to be happy again. You deserve someone who makes you laugh, who holds you when you cry, who shows up for you the way you've always shown up for everyone else. Robert wants me to meet his wife's family, her sister Joy and her parents. They're all coming for Thanksgiving dinner next week, and he asked if I'd be there. Linda's eyes widened. That's huge, Mom. That's meeting the family huge. I know. I'm terrified. Are you going to go? Eleanor thought about running, about making an excuse, about protecting herself from the possibility of more pain. Then she thought about Robert's face when he'd asked her, about the vulnerability in his voice, about Imani's hopeful eyes. Yes, I'm going. At 2 in the afternoon, Robert's truck pulled into Eleanor's driveway. He and Imani got out carrying flowers and a small bag. Eleanor opened the door before they could knock. You came. We promised, Robert said simply. They drove to the cemetery together. Eleanor sat in the front seat, holding Robert's hand, while Imani chattered from the back about a book she was reading about space. Normal kid conversation that felt like a lifeline in the midst of grief. At Richard's grave, Eleanor knelt and traced her fingers over his name carved in granite. Hi, baby. I brought some people I want you to meet. Robert knelt beside her. Imani stood between them holding her hand. "This is Robert," Eleanor said to the headstone. "He's an electrician. He's a good man, Richard. The kind of man who loves his daughter the way you loved Linda. The kind of man who's brave enough to try again even when he's scared." Her voice cracked. "The kind of man I think you'd want me to find." Robert's hand tightened on hers. "And this is Imani. She's 7 and brilliant, and she ran 6 blocks to save her daddy's happiness. She reminds me of Linda at that age. Fierce and loving and so brave." Imani knelt down and touched the headstone gently. "Hi, Mr. Richard. I'm sorry you died. Miss Eleanor misses you a lot. But I'm going to help take care of her now. Okay, me and my daddy. So you don't have to worry." Eleanor sobbed. Robert pulled her against his chest and held her while she cried. Imani wrapped her small arms around both of them, and they stayed there like that, 3 broken people holding each other together in a cemetery. When Eleanor finally pulled back, she looked at Robert through her tears. "Thank you for being here." "Where else would I be?" They left flowers on Richard's grave and drove back to Eleanor's house. Linda was still there, and when they walked in, she took one look at Eleanor's face and understood. "You must be Robert," Linda said, extending her hand. "And you must be Linda. Your mother talks about you constantly." "Good things, I hope." "The best things." Imani and Linda bonded immediately over a shared love of science fiction. They disappeared into the living room to argue about whether Star Wars or Star Trek was superior, leaving the adults alone in the kitchen. Linda pulled Eleanor aside. "Mom, he's wonderful, really wonderful. And that little girl is precious." "I know," Eleanor whispered, but I'm still scared. What if I lose him too? What if I let myself love him completely and then he dies? I can't survive that again, Linda. I barely survived it with your father." Linda grabbed Eleanor's shoulders. "Mom, listen to me. You can't live your life afraid of loss. You'll never do anything. Never love anyone. Never take any risks. Is that the life Dad would want for you? Hiding from happiness because you're afraid it might end?" "No," Eleanor admitted. "He'd hate that." "Then stop hiding. Love Robert. Love Imani. Let yourself be happy. And if something happens if you lose them, then you'll survive that too, because you're stronger than you think." That night, after Robert and Imani left, Eleanor called her therapist's emergency line. "I'm falling in love," she told Dr. Chen, "and I'm terrified." "Tell me why you're terrified, Eleanor." "Because everyone I love leaves. My parents died. Richard died. What if Robert dies too? What if I'm cursed? What if loving me is dangerous?" "Eleanor, you know that's not rational thinking. You know that's grief talking." "But what if it's true?" Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. "What if it's not? What if Robert lives to be 90? What if you get 30 more years with him? Are you going to throw that away because you're afraid of maybe losing him someday?" "But the pain will be there whether you love him or not. At least if you love him, you'll have the joy too. The companionship, the partnership. Don't let fear rob you of that, Eleanor. Don't let Richard's death steal your future." Eleanor cried into the phone. "I don't know how to do this, how to love again when I'm this scared." One day at a time. One moment at a time. Choose love over fear. Choose hope over grief. Choose to believe that you deserve happiness. The week before Thanksgiving, Robert called Eleanor at midnight. She answered groggily. "Hello?" "I can't sleep," Robert said. His voice sounded strange, tight. "I'm having a panic attack and Imani's asleep, and I didn't know who else to call." Eleanor was out of bed immediately. "I'm coming over." "You don't have to. I'm already getting dressed. Keep talking to me. Tell me what triggered it." "I was lying in bed thinking about Thanksgiving. About you meeting Deborah's family. About how they might hate you or think I'm betraying her memory. About how—" His breath hitched. "About how I'm bringing someone new into a family that's still broken from losing her." "Robert, breathe with me. In for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Can you do that? She heard him trying, struggling. It's not working. Okay, count backwards from 100 by sevens. Out loud. Let me hear you. 93. 86. His voice was shaking. 79. 72. Eleanor grabbed her keys and ran to her car. She stayed on the phone with him the entire drive, listening to him count, telling him she was coming, that he wasn't alone. When she got to his house, Robert opened the door before she could knock. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking, and his eyes were wild with panic. Eleanor pulled him into her arms. "I've got you. I'm here. You're safe." "I can't breathe right. My chest hurts. What if I'm having a heart attack? What if I die and leave Imani?" "You're not having a heart attack. This is panic. It feels like dying, but you're not dying. You're safe, Robert. I promise you're safe." She led him to the couch and made him sit. She sat beside him and took both his hands. "Look at me. Just look at me." Robert's eyes locked on hers. "Name 5 things you can see." "What? 5 things you can see right now. Say them out loud." Robert's eyes darted around. "The lamp, the couch, the coffee table, your face, the picture of Deborah on the mantel." "Good. 4 things you can touch. The couch cushion, your hands, my shirt, the blanket. 3 things you can hear." Robert paused, listening. "The refrigerator humming, a car outside, your breathing. 2 things you can smell. Coffee from this morning, your perfume. 1 thing you can taste." "Fear," Robert whispered. "I taste fear." Eleanor cupped his face. "And 1 thing you're grateful for." Robert's eyes filled. "You. I'm grateful for you. Your breathing is slowing down. The panic is passing. You're okay, Robert. You're okay." Robert collapsed against her, exhausted. "Thank you. God, Eleanor, thank you." "Don't thank me. This is what we do. We show up for each other." They sat there in the quiet for a long time. Finally, Robert spoke. "What if Deborah's family hates you?" "Then they hate me. We'll deal with it." "What if they think I'm moving on too fast?" "Robert, it's been 3 years. You're not moving too fast. You're moving at exactly the pace you need to move." "What if they make you uncomfortable? What if they spend the whole dinner talking about Deborah and you feel like you don't belong?" Eleanor pulled back to look at him. "Robert, I expect them to talk about Deborah. She was part of this family. She's Imani's mother. She's always going to be part of your story. I don't want to erase her. I just want to find my place alongside her memory." "How are you so understanding about this?" "Because I'd want the same thing if the roles were reversed. If you were meeting Linda and she spent the whole time talking about Richard, I'd want you to understand that he was important, that he shaped who I am, that loving me means accepting that he's part of my history." Robert kissed her forehead. "I love you. I know it's too soon to say that. I know we've only known each other 6 weeks. But I love you, Eleanor. I love you so much it scares me." Eleanor's heart stopped, then started again faster. "Say it again." "I love you." Again. "I love you, Eleanor Mitchell." Eleanor kissed him, deep and sure and certain. When she pulled back, she was smiling through tears. "I love you too, Robert. I love you and Imani and this messy, complicated, beautiful thing we're building together." They held each other on the couch until the panic was completely gone. Until Robert's breathing was normal and his hands had stopped shaking. Until the fear had faded and all that was left was love. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and bright. Eleanor stood in Robert's kitchen, helping Imani make pumpkin pie while Robert prepared the turkey. The house smelled like cinnamon and sage and home. "Are you nervous?" Imani asked, watching Eleanor measure flour. "Yes, very nervous." "Don't be. Grandma Janet and Grandpa Bill are nice, and Aunt Joy already loves you because you make Daddy happy." "What if they think I'm trying to replace your mama?" Imani looked at her seriously. "You're not replacing Mama. You're adding to the family. That's different." Out of the mouths of babes, Eleanor thought again. The doorbell rang at 1 o'clock. Eleanor's hands started shaking. Robert came up behind her and squeezed her shoulders. "Breathe. They're going to love you." Deborah's parents came in first. Janet was a small woman with Deborah's eyes and a warm smile. Bill was tall and quiet, but his handshake was firm. They looked at Eleanor with curiosity, but no hostility. Joy came next with her husband Marcus. Joy hugged Eleanor immediately. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for being brave enough to be here." "Thank you for having me," Eleanor managed. They ate dinner around Robert's dining table that had been extended with a folding table to fit everyone. Imani sat between Eleanor and Robert, clearly determined to bridge any awkward gaps. At first, conversation was stilted, polite, everyone trying too hard. Then Bill asked Eleanor about her teaching career, and she started talking about second graders and their hilarious misunderstandings. Soon, everyone was laughing at her stories. One kid insisted that Abraham Lincoln invented the telephone because Lincoln was tall and phones had long cords, Eleanor said. "I tried to explain about Alexander Graham Bell, but he was convinced. Wrote it on his test. When I marked it wrong, his mother called to argue with me." Janet laughed so hard she snorted. Deborah would have loved that story. She always said little kids were the best comedians. The table went quiet. Eleanor felt everyone watching her, waiting to see how she'd react to hearing Deborah's name. "Tell me about her," Eleanor said gently. "Tell me about Deborah." Janet's eyes filled. "You want to hear about my daughter?" "Yes. I want to know her. Not as Robert's late wife, but as a person, as Imani's mother, as someone you loved." So they told her about Deborah's terrible singing voice and her incredible heart, about how she volunteered at children's hospitals even on her days off, about how she could make anyone laugh no matter how bad their day was, about how she fought cancer with grace and humor until the very end. "The last thing she said to me," Janet whispered, was, "Take care of my boys." That's what she called them. Robert and Imani were her boys, even though Imani's a girl. Her boys. She also said something else. Bill added quietly. She said, "Don't let Bobby stop living. He's going to want to. But don't let him." She made us promise. Robert's hand found Eleanor's under the table. Janet looked at Eleanor with tears streaming down her face. "So when Joy told us Robert was dating someone, I cried. Not because I was angry, but because it meant he was keeping his promise to Deborah. He was living again." "I'm not trying to take her place," Eleanor said, her voice shaking. "I could never—" "We know," Janet interrupted. "We can see that. We can see how you look at Robert, how you love Imani, how you're not trying to erase our daughter, but just trying to find your own space in this family. And Eleanor, there is space. There's always space for more love." Eleanor broke down crying right there at the Thanksgiving table. Janet came around and hugged her fiercely. "Welcome to the family, dear. Welcome." The rest of the dinner was easier. The tension had broken. They ate pie and drank coffee and told more stories. Imani showed her grandparents the volcano that Eleanor had helped build. Marcus and Robert argued about football. Joy pulled Eleanor aside in the kitchen. "I need to tell you something," Joy said. Eleanor braced herself. "That night when Robert had his panic attack before your first date, I told him not to go. I told him it was too soon, that he wasn't ready, that he should cancel." Joy grabbed Eleanor's hands. "I was wrong. So wrong. You've brought him back to life. You've given him hope. You've shown Imani what healthy love looks like. Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you for not giving up on him." "He's easy to love," Eleanor said simply. "No, he's not. He's complicated and broken and scared. But you love him anyway. That's what makes you special." After everyone left, Robert, Eleanor, and Imani collapsed on the couch in an exhausted heap. "That went well," Robert said, sounding shocked. "They loved you," Imani told Eleanor. "I could tell." "I loved them too," Eleanor admitted. "Your mama had a beautiful family, sweetheart." Imani snuggled into Eleanor's side. Now they're your family too. Eleanor looked at Robert over Imani's head. He mouthed, I love you, and Eleanor mouthed it back. Later that night, after Imani went to bed, Robert walked Eleanor to her car. Thank you for today, he said, for being brave enough to face all of that, for letting them talk about Deborah, for not running away when things got emotional. Where would I run to? This is where I want to be. With you. With Imani. With all the complicated, messy parts that make you who you are. Robert kissed her under the stars in his driveway. Move in with me. Eleanor pulled back. What? Move in with me. Not right now. Not tomorrow. But soon. In the next few months. Move into this house and help me make it ours instead of just mine and Deborah's. Help me build a future instead of just surviving in the past. Robert, that's huge. I know, and I know it's fast. But Eleanor, I'm 43 years old. I've already lost years to grief. I don't want to waste any more time being scared. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want Imani to have you here. I want us to be a family. Eleanor's heart raced. Let me think about it. Let me talk to Linda and my therapist and process this. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. But as Eleanor drove home that night, she realized she didn't need time. She already knew her answer. She was going to say yes, because Dr. Chen was right. She couldn't live her life afraid of loss. She had to choose love over fear. She had to choose hope over grief. She had to choose Robert. Eleanor called Linda the next morning before she could talk herself out of it. Robert asked me to move in with him. Silence on the other end. Then Linda's careful voice. What did you say? I said I'd think about it. But Linda, I don't need to think about it. I want to say yes. Mom, you've known him for 6 weeks. I know. 6 weeks isn't enough time to... Your father proposed to me after 8 weeks. We were married 3 months later. More silence. Then Linda sighed. That was different. How? You were 23. You had your whole life ahead of you. Now you're 62, old, running out of time. Eleanor's voice hardened. Is that what you were going to say? No. Mom, no. I just meant you've already built a life. Already had a marriage. You don't need to rush into another one. But what if I want to? What if I don't want to spend whatever years I have left alone? What if I want to wake up next to someone who loves me? What if I want to be part of a family again? Linda was quiet for a long moment. Are you doing this because you're lonely, or because you actually love him? Both. Is that allowed? Can I be lonely and in love at the same time? Mom, I'm scared for you. What if it doesn't work out? What if you move in and then realize you made a mistake? What if I don't try and spend the rest of my life wondering what if... Eleanor interrupted. Linda, I've been dead for 4 years, breathing but not living. Robert makes me want to live again. Imani makes me want to live again. I'm not replacing your father. I'm honoring him by choosing joy instead of grief. Does Robert know you're going to say yes? Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. Why? Because you're my daughter and I need you to understand. I need you to be okay with this. Linda cried on the other end of the phone. I am okay with it, Mom. I'm scared, but I'm okay with it. You deserve to be happy. Dad would want you to be happy. Thank you, baby. That means everything. Eleanor drove to Robert's house that afternoon. He answered the door in work clothes covered in dust from a job site. I wasn't expecting you, he said, smiling. Come in. Let me just wash up real quick. Wait. Eleanor grabbed his hand. I have something to say first. Robert's face went pale. Oh, God. You're here to let me down easy. You're going to say the moving in thing was too much too fast and... Yes. Robert blinked. What? Yes. I'll move in with you. I want to move in with you. Robert just stared at her. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Robert, say something. Are you serious? Completely serious. You're going to move in with me and Imani into this house. If you'll have me, yes. Robert grabbed Eleanor and spun her around in his dusty work clothes. He kissed her hard and desperate. When he set her down, they were both crying. When? He asked. After Christmas. Give me time to talk to Linda more. Time to pack. Time to prepare Imani. Time to back out if you change your mind. Eleanor touched his face. I'm not going to change my mind. But we need to do this right. For Imani's sake. She needs to understand what this means. That I'm not replacing her mother. That this is about building something new, not erasing something old. Okay. Robert breathed. Okay. After Christmas. They told Imani that night over dinner. Eleanor had cooked spaghetti, and they sat around the table like they'd done dozens of times before. But this time felt different, weighted with significance. Imani, we need to talk to you about something, Robert started. Imani looked up from her pasta sauce on her chin. Am I in trouble? No, baby, nothing like that. Robert glanced at Eleanor. Miss Eleanor is going to move in with us after Christmas, if that's okay with you. Imani dropped her fork. Really? For real? Really? For real, really? Eleanor confirmed. Imani launched herself out of her chair and threw her arms around Eleanor's neck. Yes, 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 I've been praying for this. Every night I've been praying. Eleanor held her tight, fighting tears. Sweetheart, you understand what this means, right? I'm not trying to be your new mama. I'm just going to be Eleanor, someone who lives here and loves you and your daddy very much. Imani pulled back, her face serious. I know you're not my mama. I only get one mama, but you can be my Eleanor. That's special too. Yes, Eleanor whispered. That's exactly right. Can we redecorate your room? Imani asked, suddenly already planning. The office, I mean. Daddy said that would be your room. Can we paint it? Can I help pick out curtains? Robert laughed. Yes, baby, you can help. And the next few weeks passed in a blur of packing and planning and second-guessing. Eleanor's house sold faster than she expected to a young couple expecting their first baby. She watched them walk through her home, with Richard seeing themselves there, imagining their future, and she felt peace instead of pain. This is where we raised Linda, Eleanor told the young wife. Where my husband and I danced in the kitchen and fought over whose turn it was to take out the trash and loved each other for 33 years. There's so much love in these walls. I hope you feel it. The young woman's eyes filled. We will. We'll take good care of it. Linda helped Eleanor pack. They went through boxes of memories together, deciding what to keep and what to let go. You're really doing this, Linda said, wrapping Richard's favorite coffee mug in newspaper. I really am. Are you scared? Terrified, but I'm doing it anyway. Linda set down the mug and hugged her mother. I'm proud of you, Mom. Dad would be too. You think so? I know so. He always said you were the bravest person he knew, that you faced everything head-on and never backed down. This is you being brave again. This is you choosing life. Christmas Eve arrived, Eleanor's last night in her house. Linda came over with takeout and wine, and they sat on the floor surrounded by boxes. Do you remember Dad's last Christmas? Linda asked. Every detail. He burned the turkey and we had to order pizza. He felt so guilty, but I didn't care. We were together. That's all that mattered. He knew Mom, that last year. He knew something was wrong with his heart. He told me. Eleanor's head snapped up. What? He'd been having chest pains for months. The doctor told him he needed surgery, but Dad kept putting it off. Said he wanted to get through the holidays first. Through your anniversary. Through summer vacation. There was always one more thing. Linda's voice broke. He knew he was dying and he didn't tell you. Eleanor couldn't breathe. Why didn't you tell me? Because he made me promise. He said you'd make him have the surgery immediately, and he wanted a few more normal months. He wanted to live, Mom. Really live, without hospitals and worry. He said if he was going to die anyway, he wanted to die happy. Linda. He did die happy, Mom. He was mowing the lawn and humming. The neighbor said he looked peaceful right before he collapsed. He got what he wanted. A normal life, right up until the end. Eleanor sobbed into her hands. I could have saved him. If I'd known, I could have made him get the surgery. And he might have survived. Or he might have died on the operating table. Or he might have lived, but been too afraid to actually live. Linda grabbed Eleanor's shoulders. Mom, he chose quality over quantity. He chose joy over fear. And he'd want you to do the same thing. That's why you need to move in with Robert. That's why you need to stop being scared and just live. They cried together on the floor of Eleanor's empty house. Cried for Richard. Cried for all the what-ifs and might-have-beens. Cried for the life that was ending and the one that was beginning. Christmas morning, Eleanor woke up in her empty house for the last time. She walked through each room saying goodbye. Goodbye to the kitchen where she and Richard had danced. Goodbye to the bedroom where they'd made love and fought and made up. Goodbye to Linda's childhood room. Goodbye to 33 years of memories. Thank you, Eleanor whispered to the walls. Thank you for holding us. Thank you for being home. Robert picked her up at noon with a truck full of her belongings. Imani bounced in the front seat wearing reindeer antlers. Merry Christmas, Miss Eleanor. You're moving in. This is the best Christmas ever. They drove to Robert's house, Eleanor following in her own car one last time. When they pulled into the driveway, the whole street was there waiting. Joy and Marcus, Janet and Bill, Linda and some of Eleanor's teacher friends, even some of Robert's electrician crew. Everyone there to help move Eleanor in, to witness this new beginning. We wanted you to know you're not alone, Joy said, hugging Eleanor. You're family now, our family. They moved boxes and furniture while Christmas music played. They laughed and told stories and made Eleanor feel welcome. Linda and Imani worked together to arrange Eleanor's books on the shelves in her new room. Janet helped unpack kitchen supplies while giving Eleanor the history of every dish in Robert's cabinets. Deborah loved this casserole dish, Janet said, running her fingers over the blue ceramic. Used it for every potluck and church dinner. I'm glad you'll use it too. Glad it'll keep feeding people she loved. By evening, everything was unpacked. The house looked different now. Still Robert's house. Still filled with Deborah's memory. But also Eleanor's home. A blend of past and future grief and hope, loss and love. Everyone left as the sun set. Suddenly it was just the three of them. Robert, Eleanor, and Imani. A family. What do we do now? Imani asked. Now we make dinner, Eleanor said. Together. As a family. They cooked in the kitchen side by side. Robert made his famous spaghetti, while Eleanor tossed salad and Imani set the table. It was ordinary and perfect, and everything Eleanor had been missing. After dinner, they opened Christmas presents. Robert gave Eleanor a key to the house on a keychain that said, Home. Imani gave her a framed drawing of the three of them holding hands with a rainbow overhead. Eleanor gave Robert new work gloves and gave Imani a telescope for her space obsession. Best Christmas ever, Imani declared, already looking through her telescope at the living room ceiling. After Imani went to bed, Robert and Eleanor sat on the couch holding hands. How does it feel? Robert asked. Being here, really living here. Scary, right? Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I keep waiting for someone to tell me I don't deserve this, that I don't deserve to be happy again after Deborah, that it's wrong to move on. But you're not moving on. You're moving forward. There's a difference. Robert pulled Eleanor close. I love you. God, Eleanor. I love you so much. I love you too. They kissed, slowly savoring it. When they pulled apart, Robert's eyes were uncertain. Do you want to sleep in my room tonight? Or do you need your own space still? Eleanor thought about her empty house, about sleeping alone for 4 years, about waking up reaching for someone who wasn't there. Your room, she said. I want to sleep in your room, with you. They lay in bed together, fully clothed at first, both nervous. Then Eleanor turned into Robert's arms, and he held her close. I haven't shared a bed with someone in 4 years, Eleanor whispered. Me either. We'll figure it out together. What if I snore? Then I'll get earplugs. What if I steal the covers? Then I'll get more blankets. What if I talk in my sleep about Richard? Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Then I'll know you're dreaming about someone you loved. And that's okay, Eleanor. That's always going to be okay. Eleanor cried into his chest. How are you so understanding about this? Because I dream about Deborah too. And I wake up crying sometimes. And I'm going to need you to be okay with that. Can you be? Yes. Always yes. They fell asleep holding each other. Two broken people choosing to heal together. Choosing love over fear. Choosing hope over grief. Eleanor woke up at 3 a.m. to find Robert having a nightmare. He was thrashing and muttering Deborah's name. She touched his face gently. Robert, wake up. His eyes flew open, disoriented and panicked. Deborah. No, wait. Eleanor. I was dreaming about. I'm sorry, Shh. It's okay. You're allowed to dream about her. You're allowed to miss her. Robert clung to Eleanor. I was back in the hospice room, watching her die again, unable to save her. And I was so angry, Eleanor. So angry at God and cancer and everything that took her from me. I know. I'm angry too sometimes. Angry at Richard's heart for giving out. Angry at myself for not knowing. Angry at the universe for being so unfair. Does it get easier, the anger? No, but you learn to live with it. You learn that you can be angry and grateful at the same time. Angry you lost them, but grateful you had them. They talked until dawn, sharing their fears and grief and hope. When the sun rose, they were still holding each other. January passed in a blur of adjustment. Eleanor learned Robert's routines. How he always checked the locks 3 times before bed. How he needed coffee before he could speak in the morning. How he hummed while he worked. Robert learned Eleanor's quirks. How she talked to Richard's photo every morning. How she needed silence when she was reading. How she cried during commercials about dogs. Imani adjusted faster than either of them expected. She'd drag Eleanor to school events and introduce her to teachers and friends. This is my Eleanor, she'd say proudly. Never my new mom or my stepmom, just my Eleanor. One evening in February, Eleanor was cooking dinner when Imani came in looking troubled. Miss Eleanor, can I ask you something? Always, sweetheart. My friend Maya says her parents got divorced because her dad got a girlfriend. She says sometimes daddies leave when they find someone new. Imani's voice got small. Is my daddy going to leave me now that he has you? Eleanor's heart broke. She knelt down to Imani's level. Oh, honey, no. Never. Your daddy loves you more than anything in this world. I didn't take him away from you. I just joined your family. He's not going anywhere. Neither am I. Promise. I promise. We're a triangle. Remember, like you said that first night, 3 points, strongest shape there is. We all hold each other up. Imani threw her arms around Eleanor's neck. I'm glad you're here, Miss Eleanor. I'm glad you didn't give up on us. That night, Eleanor told Robert about the conversation. He looked devastated. I never thought about her worrying about that. About me leaving. She's 7 and her mother died. She's scared of losing people. That's normal. What do? You keep showing up. You keep loving her. You keep proving every single day that you're not going anywhere. In March, Eleanor got a call from Dr. Chen's office. Her therapist was retiring and referring all her patients to a new doctor. Eleanor panicked. I can't start over with someone new. she told Robert. "Doctor, Chen knows my whole history, knows about Richard, knows about my grief journey. How can I explain all of that to someone new?" "The same way you explained it to me, one story at a time." But Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that this was a sign, that she was supposed to stop therapy now that she was happy, that needing help meant she was failing at this new life. She spiraled for 3 days before Robert noticed. He found her crying in the bathroom at 2 in the morning. "Eleanor, talk to me. What's going on?" "I'm a mess. I'm happy with you, but I'm still sad about Richard. I love our life, but I miss my old one. I'm grateful and guilty at the same time, and I don't know how to reconcile all these feelings, and my therapist is gone, and I'm falling apart." Robert pulled her into his arms. "You're not falling apart. You're human. Eleanor, it's okay to be happy and sad, grateful and guilty, moving forward and looking back, all at the same time. That's not falling apart. That's healing." "But I thought I'd be better by now. I thought loving you would fix me." "I can't fix you. You don't need fixing. You need support. You need someone to hold you while you feel all these impossible feelings. That's what I'm here for." Eleanor sobbed into his chest. "I'm scared I'm broken beyond repair." "You're not broken. You're wounded. There's a difference. Broken things can't be used. Wounded things just need time to heal." The next day, Eleanor called the new therapist Dr. Chen had recommended. Dr. Sarah Moore had a kind voice and an immediate opening. "Tell me about yourself, Eleanor," Dr. Moore said in their first session. So Eleanor did. She told her everything. About Richard's death and the guilt she carried. About Robert and Imani and the joy she'd found. About feeling like she was betraying Richard by being happy. About feeling like she didn't deserve this second chance. "Why don't you deserve happiness?" Dr. Moore asked. "Because Richard's dead. Because I didn't save him. Because I let him go outside that day and he died and it's my fault." Is it really your fault that Richard had a heart condition, that he chose not to get surgery? That his heart gave out? I should have known. I should have made him go to the doctor more. I should have... Eleanor, stop. You're not God. You're not omniscient. You couldn't have known. And even if you had known, Richard was an adult who made his own choices. His death is not your fault. Eleanor cried through the entire session. But when she left, she felt lighter. Not healed, but lighter. Spring arrived, and with it came new challenges. Robert's business was struggling. A major client had backed out, and suddenly money was tight. Robert tried to hide his stress from Eleanor, but she noticed the calls he took outside, the bills he stared at late at night, the way his jaw clenched when Imani asked for new shoes. "Talk to me," Eleanor said one night. "I know something's wrong." Robert sighed. "I'm going to lose the business. I can't make payroll next month. I'm going to have to lay off my guys and close shop, and I don't know what to do." "How much do you need?" "Eleanor, I'm not taking your money. It's not my money. It's our money. We're a family. What's mine is yours. I can't ask you to..." "You're not asking. I'm offering. How much, Robert?" He told her. Eleanor wrote him a check without hesitation. Robert stared at it with tears in his eyes. "I'll pay you back, every cent, I promise." "I don't want you to pay me back. I want you to save your business. I want you to keep being the man who provides for his family. I want you to know that you're not alone in this anymore." Robert pulled her close. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do. We both deserve this. This partnership, this love, this life we're building together." The business stabilized. Spring turned to summer. Imani finished second grade with straight A's. Eleanor volunteered at the school and joined Robert's church and slowly became part of his community. People stopped introducing her as Robert's girlfriend and started just saying Eleanor, like she'd always been there. One July evening, they were sitting on the back porch watching Imani chase fireflies when Robert said, "Marry me." Eleanor's head snapped around. "What? Marry me? I know we said we'd take it slow. I know we said we'd just live together for a while. But Eleanor, I want you to be my wife. I want us to be official. I want the world to know that you're mine and I'm yours, and we're choosing each other every single day. Robert, I don't have a ring. I didn't plan this, but I'm asking anyway. Will you marry me? Eleanor looked at this man who'd let her into his broken family, who'd held her through panic attacks and grief spirals, who'd loved her ghosts as much as her present, who'd shown her that second chances were real. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you, Imani screamed from the yard. Did Daddy just propose? Did you say yes, we're getting married? Eleanor laughed through tears. Yes, baby, we're getting married. Imani ran up onto the porch and crashed into both of them. This is the best day of my life. Wait until I tell Grandma Janet. Wait until I tell Maya. Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a fancy dress? You can be whatever you want, Eleanor said, holding her tight. Can I call you Mom? Imani asked, suddenly pulling back to look at Eleanor seriously. Not instead of Mama. But also, can you be Mom and Mama be Mama? Eleanor's vision blurred with tears. She looked at Robert, who was crying too. If that's what you want, sweetheart. If that feels right to you. It does. You're my mom. The one who lives here and makes breakfast and helps with homework and tucks me in. Mama's the one in heaven watching over us. I can have both, right? Right, Eleanor choked out. You can absolutely have both. They were married 3 months later, in the same park where Eleanor and Robert had first talked about their grief. A small ceremony with just family and close friends. Imani stood between them as they exchanged vows, holding both their hands. Eleanor's vows were simple. Robert, you taught me that my heart was big enough for two loves. That honoring Richard didn't mean abandoning you. That I could build a new life without demolishing the old one. You gave me a family when I thought my family was finished. You gave me hope when I'd forgotten what hope felt like. I love you. I'll love you for whatever time we have, and I promise to show up every single day and choose you over fear. Robert's vows broke everyone's hearts. Eleanor, you walked into my life when I'd given up on happiness. You loved my daughter when you could have run away from our mess. You held space for my grief instead of asking me to bury it. You made me believe that Deborah would want this for me. That she'd be happy I found you. I love you with everything I have, and I promise to love you loudly and proudly for the rest of my life. When they kissed, Imani cheered louder than anyone. That's my mom and dad, she shouted to anyone who'd listen. The reception was held in Robert's backyard. Janet and Eleanor's Linda had become fast friends, and they decorated everything with lights and flowers. People danced and laughed and toasted to second chances. Late in the evening, Eleanor found herself standing by Deborah's rose garden. Janet appeared beside her. She'd be happy, you know, Janet said softly. Deborah, she'd be so happy Robert found you. How can you be sure? Because I know my daughter. She loved Robert more than anything. She'd want him to be happy. She'd want Imani to have a mother. And Eleanor, you're exactly what they needed. Someone strong enough to hold space for grief while building something new. Eleanor hugged Deborah's mother. Two women united by love for the same man, not competing, just loving him together, then and now. As the party wound down, Eleanor danced with Robert in the backyard where Deborah's roses bloomed, where Deborah had once gardened and laughed and lived, where new memories were being made alongside old ones. Happy? Robert asked. Terrified, grateful, hopeful, happy, all of it. That's how you know it's real. I love you, Robert Mitchell. Thank you for being brave enough to try again. Thank you for staying that first night at Romano's. Thank you for not giving up when I was a mess. Thank you for loving my daughter. Thank you for choosing us. Imani ran over and grabbed both their hands. Family picture. We need a family picture. They posed together, Linda taking the photo. Three people who'd been broken by loss and found each other in the wreckage. Three people who'd chosen hope over fear, love over grief, Life over merely surviving. A family not despite their pain, but because of it. Because sometimes the best families are the ones built from broken pieces held together with courage and love and the refusal to give up on happiness. Eleanor looked at the photo later that night. Robert's arm around her waist. Imani grinning between them. All three of them looking at the camera with joy that was hard-won and real. This was her life now. Not the one she'd planned. Not the one she'd had with Richard. But a good life. A full life. A life worth living. And somewhere she believed Richard was watching and smiling. Proud of her for being brave enough to love again. Grateful that she'd found someone who would love her the way he had. Happy that she'd chosen life.